Guys, welcome to another episode of the CrossFit Edwardsville Community Podcast. I'm your co-host, Greg Skelly. I'm part of the coaching team, CEO and GM here at CrossFit Edwardsville, and I have the great honor and privilege, once again, of welcoming the incomparable Coach Kelsey to the podcast. Kelsey, happy Thursday to you.
Happy Thursday to you. I am glad this week is almost over. It's been quite the week.
Yeah. Does the snow really affect you guys pretty dramatically where you are as well?
We have had a lot of snow. As you know, I lost childcare because of the roads, but we also had some water lines break going out to our livestock. So we had to have one of our friends come out with a backhoe and dig it up in negative 12-degree wind chills. And it was just terrible. So it has not been a great
sucks.
week.
Yeah, it's been a rocky week. I want to say I don't know if Joel ever watches this podcast, but major shout out to him for stepping up to help out. Major thanks to him for making it possible for Kelsey to get freed up to spend some time hanging out with us today.
Yeah, I do appreciate his flexibility. That is for sure.
And we're excited because today we get to have a conversation about sustainability, dietary sustainability. Mm-hmm. Maybe one of the hottest topics of all, one of the most challenging topics of all. And maybe this is the perfect day to have this conversation because before we rolled tape, Kelsey was telling me she had been having some conversations with her clients about this very topic. So Kelsey, my question for you is why do you think this is an important thing to discuss?
I think sustainability can trip us up. Whenever we look at a nutrition plan, I think our initial thought goes to what happens on the day that I can't do this. And it's just such an abstract topic sometimes that it just causes people to trip, and frustratingly so. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think that for a lot of people, it's even the reason why they wouldn't start a nutrition thing in the first place, because they're like, well, if I'm only going to do this for 4 weeks, is there really a point? Mm-hmm. Hey, I don't want to give up pizza and beer forever. Right. So should I bother at all? Right. So if something isn't sustainable, then the question becomes, is it worth the time, the effort, the money, the exertion to start in the first place?
Right. And speaking of, we talked about the timing of this episode, I wanted to just quickly share my personal story of sustainability, because I think it illustrates. Apparently, I can't talk today. Yeah. It illustrates an important point. So I don't know. I think you kind of know my story of sustainability, but for anybody who's listening, I really started down this path on February 10th, 12 years ago. I was diagnosed with MS. And it was life-changing. Clearly, I was 24 years old and I couldn't walk down 4 stairs without holding onto a railing. So the motivation to find something to make me feel better was great. And after about a year of trying everything, I found a paleo approach and I felt so much better. And we can talk about that some other time. I don't want to run over this podcast with autoimmune issues, but the point is for 11 years, I have maintained some version of a paleo approach, and that has changed. And that doesn't mean that I was paleo perfect every day or week or month. A lot of things have happened since that time. I've competed in CrossFit. I left a very secure corporate job to start my own business. I had 2 kids. I had pregnancy loss. I dealt with postpartum depression. I moved from a very secure community to somewhere where we didn't know anybody. So a lot has happened and influenced that. But the overall, I would say the day-to-day decisions of what I put in my mouth have been a real food, nutrient-dense approach, upwards of about 95% of the time. So it can work, right? But it doesn't have to be this perfect path 100% of the time.
Amen to all of that. I completely agree. And speaking to that a little bit for myself, I've been an entrepreneur for my entire adult life, and you can't really pick a harder, a more volatile path to take. Mm-hmm. And I found that finding sustainability in my own nutrition has been a rock for me. It's given me a sense of something that can be consistent. It can be an anchor I can hold on to in order to maintain, to it's interesting because so many people use food as a comfort. I think for me, it gives me stability because I remember when I was growing up, we didn't have any nutrition plan whatsoever. It was literally like whatever we felt like having, whenever we wanted to have it. And I've told this story so many times. We basically grew up eating pancakes and breakfast cereal for every meal.
Yeah.
And I had the body that you get when you eat pancakes and breakfast cereal for every meal. We did essentially no physical activity, and it was a complete absence of any kind of nutrition plan whatsoever. And I felt like you feel when there's no nutrition plan in place. It just felt terrible. Like my energy levels were completely unpredictable. I get tired all the time, mental fog, the whole nine. It was a mess. But now on the other side of it, I find it is possible to create a sustainable lifestyle thing. And I'm hoping that in this podcast we can outline some of what you and I have learned, some of the things that we've found along this journey for making it hopefully more sustainable to the people that are listening in. So,
And I think you're probably a perfect example of one of my key points to sustainability is to keep things interesting, but not too interesting. So I think that you've talked before about how you eat the same meals day in and day out. And I think everybody needs to find their range or tolerance for consistency. But nobody I know who maintains a nutrient dense way of eating is like making like massive 3-course meals every single day that are different and all that. Like day in and day out, largely they eat the same things for breakfast, the same things for lunch, and then a same like mix for dinner. Like, don't you agree?
I agree. Yeah, and maybe we could even start by saying like, let's clarify what we agree is not sustainable. And I definitely agree that creating lavish 3-course meals day in day out, that is not sustainable for any of us. If we have kids, we have jobs, we have responsibilities, we have hobbies. We're trying to make this healthy eating thing fit into a complex, messy world with a lot of changing variables, with COVID, with snow days, with the water lines freezing or whatever.
Yeah, and I will tell you that we keep a supply of the thing we had to do when the water line it snapped and it was gushing water, so we had to turn off the water to our house, and we keep a stash of um, approved pizzas in our freezer, and that's what I went to that night. Like it was there, didn't require water, I could get it in. I knew it was not as terrible as ordering pizza in would have made me feel physically and emotionally and all that sort of stuff. So definitely have a plan B and always have a backup plan, but the deviation is not if you have a plan B, when you deviate, it's not as large and as big of a cliff to fall off of.
Yeah, and it's probably important to lay out here too that sustainability is not eating perfect all the time, right? The standard is not perfection. The standard is what is livable, what is the winnable battle in this season of life.
Right.
And I mean, can you kind of talk about that a little bit, Kelsey? Because I know this is something that you're very passionate on this
Sure.
topic.
Well, and let's talk about too. So, if anybody has coached who has been through a nutrition program with me or through CrossFit Edwardsville, we do ask that people maintain some level of, I don't want to even say perfection, because I don't think we really like, we try and help them make better choices and it may feel like perfectionism, but I think that there is a time when we're doing this sort of elimination approach to remove highly inflammatory foods, to remove high allergenic foods and see how you react and feel, and then add things back in as appropriate. So I think that there is a time and a place for more strict eating.
Yes.
But that is not, once you've kind of gone through this initial reset or jump start or kickstart or whatever it's called at the time, once you're through that, finding foods to add back in, finding things you really miss, and finding modifications are very helpful to maintain it. One of the conversations I was having with a client was regards to pizza. Like she was like, I have been on this plan for almost 8 weeks and I just really would like some pizza. And pizza, like we tend to, it's weird that I keep coming back to that, but there are lots of ways to make pizza paleo friendly, keto friendly, Whole30 friendly, vegan friendly, whatever it is, there are ways to modify it. Like it doesn't have to be this sink of off-plan foods either. So my general rule when I'm working with people is that whenever we start talking about reintroducing foods or adding things back in, the first thing, and I'm going to come back to this topic that we talk about all the time, is we need to consider, are we an abstainer or are we a moderator? If we're a moderator, we have a little bit more width to eat off course and continue to stay on the general path. The abstainers, we need more guardrails. So an abstainer needs to figure out what foods really create that binge, steer very clear of those, but then find ways to incorporate other foods. I
Yes.
felt like I started talking and then I forgot what your exact question was.
It's okay. No, I don't think we asked a question. We were just,
Okay.
we're trading ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about like what foods to include in a diet,
Mm-hmm.
what foods not to, one of the things that can be valuable, since you mentioned this, right, is that when you maybe you do a nutrition kickstart, right,
Mm-hmm.
and you completely clean house and you stay away from all foods that would tend to sabotage you. You're like, I know I don't feel as good. I know I'm fluffier around the middle when I eat bread, cereals, grains, pastas, all that. So I steer away from all that for this time period, right? We do that a lot of times in order to give the body a complete reset,
Mm-hmm.
complete fresh start, completely clean house internally,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. And for a lot of people, they can realize by the end of it, you know what? I feel amazing and I don't miss X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question then becomes, right? Okay, you can sustain that. Then you're like, you know what? I realize I don't miss sugar. I don't miss bread, whatever it is for you, right? I don't miss that as much. Cool, I can keep going. For me, sustainable is to maintain the course of action I'm on. But what if you're like, you know what? It's been 8 weeks. I really miss pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's been 8 weeks. I really miss wine. We have a reintroduction protocol. But before we even get into that, I like to ask the question is like, why do you miss it? What is it about that you miss?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the time, there's an emotional connection to a food that actually is an outward manifestation. It's the flower of a seed that might be an underlying issue. Like, why is it that you like wine that much? Do you use it to mask or escape a feeling, right? Were you raised where you just had birthday cake at every birthday, and you have this association of joy and positivity associated with birthday cake? So is it possible to achieve that same feeling of joy and positivity and celebration in the absence of birthday cake, right? But the question I like to ask is, what is it about that particular item that is so attractive? Because if there is some underlying issue, some deeper psychological, emotional thing, that will persist. That will always be there
Right.
until you address it. And I'm sure you've encountered this as well, Kelsey, in your conversations with folks.
I have, and I have a few therapists that I refer people out to, because at some point when we're really digging into some of this, a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of, there's nothing wrong with going to therapy. I've been in therapy before. I love therapy. If I could be in therapy all day, every day, I would be there because everything would be so much better. But sometimes we need to address some of these emotional connections with food, address addictions, address past trauma to make something like this sustainable, because we do look to food for comfort. We do look to food to create this feeling that everything is all right with the world.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people, they're every day, like the job, they go to a job, it's the same thing every single day. And maybe like generally in life, there's a lot of things that are just kind of mundane, repetitive, over and over, and they seek excitement in food. And I don't think there's anything wrong with loving your food and being excited about your food and really enjoying food. I think food should definitely be enjoyed. It's done right. Healthy eating is awesome. But what I do think could be a problem, and this gets back to like the underlying issue is, are you using food as a short-term thrill ride? Are you using food as an adrenaline rush that you're going to regret later? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Is this the point where the behavior toward food, the relationship that you have with food, that relationship must be addressed in order for you to have something sustainable, right?
It's hard work. It's really hard work to address that.
Yeah.
One thing that I find, like a technique that I find helpful for people who are really struggling to just get through the day. Like I hear so often from clients, like I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm back on plan. I'm going to do this like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 months, 1 year, forever. And I tell people don't operate in forever. Like our human brains are not designed to really understand what forever means, or even 6 months, 3 months, some of these longer term goals. So I really encourage a just for today approach. Like just for today, I'm only going to put foods into my body that nourish me. Just for today, I'm going to hit my water goal. Just for today, I'm going to get out and go for a walk. Just for today, I'm going to go for the gym. Pick what you're going to do that day. And when your mind starts to wander to like, but what about tomorrow? Tomorrow's pizza night. Tomorrow's a birthday party. Like, don't worry about that today. Worry about that tomorrow, or create a plan for it today, right? But the point is like, get into today and only focus on today. What are you going to do today?
Right. And sustainability isn't doing one thing forever either. Right. For most people, that is not an enjoyable path. It's not a livable path. What I have seen, one of the key things I've noticed amongst people that really succeed long term with healthy eating is they adopt a personal rule set that is like a tried and true, like a dogma that they swear by. For some people, it's to have a cheat meal one time a week. I have a cheat meal once a month. But what it is at its core is it is a plan for what do I do day in, day out. I think that right at the start, if you want something sustainable, you need to have some sort of plan. It might just be for today. It might be for this week. It might be for this month. But having a plan is essential because where people get really tripped up is going into this week, they haven't thought ahead at all about what they're going to eat. I'm gonna figure out as I go along. I'm busy. It was Sunday. I didn't even think about my meals whatsoever. Right off the bat, if I was going to say, create something sustainable, start with creating a plan for today. Start with creating a plan for this week.
Yep. And create the plan, but you mentioned that we have a busy Sunday. Maybe we don't meal prep. Maybe we don't do some of the things we need to do. Always have a plan B. When I worked at a corporate office, I had a list in my phone of restaurants and meals I could get from those restaurants that were on plan. And it was simple. It was like Crazy Bowls and Wraps, Qdoba. There was a small Thai place like that I could walk to from my office building. And I actually made notes in that. So, because we've talked about decision fatigue, like when your mind is just overwhelmed, I would just pull up that, what do I actually call and tell them that I want, or order through my phone? And it was right there. So, creating those plan Bs, creating those I just didn't have time. We were at my kids' softball tournament all weekend, and I didn't get a chance to meal prep. So now what do I do? Create those backup plans for yourself.
Yeah. And there's going to be different plans in different seasons of life. Do you agree?
I totally agree.
Like as you look at this next week, your winnable battle this week could be very different than what your winnable battle is in midsummer when you're at a lot of barbecues. Or what is your winnable battle when it's Super Bowl Sunday? Those things can vary. So I do believe removing forever from the vocabulary, that's a long ass time. And I think you mentioned that our human brains are not designed to work with such a long time frame. But Kelsey, what about special occasions?
So nobody is saying with these plans, unless you have like celiac disease or severe reactions to some of these foods, you probably, or severe or food addictions or something that really keeps you from like, I cannot put this food into my mouth. It is not safe for me to do that. There's no reason why you can't go to a wedding. You can't have a beer at a barbecue. You can't do some of these things and enjoy yourself, especially when you're out of that initial jumpstart, initial elimination phase. I always use this example. I can't remember if I've used it on this podcast in the past, but I remember I was onboarding a client several years ago, and she was totally on board with the plan. But I could tell something was bothering her. And she said, I'm for all of this, but I'm just nervous about not being able to eat cake at my daughter's wedding. And I'm like, I get it. We can work around that, right? And I go, but when's she getting married? And she goes, well, she's not engaged yet, but she has a really great boyfriend. And as she said it, like you know how when you say something and you're like, ooh, like I know exactly like how, like I know, like I see it now. She could realize like the concern, and it sounded silly, but sometimes we get tripped up into this, like we go down a plan and we're like, wait a minute, I'm never going to eat birthday cake again. Like I can't do this, and we all have kind of been there. And so special occasions, just switch your just for today for that day. So just for today, I'm going to go to this wedding and I'm going to enjoy myself. Right. And go from that. The other thing I will say is sometimes when we have special occasions, we also have the opportunity to build a base earlier in the day. So if I know somebody is going to be going somewhere or doing something that's going to take them off plan, there are a few things I recommend. First of all, get your water, hit your water goals, drink water. Like hydrating is going to help you process any of these foods that you're not used to. It's also going to help you from overeating because you think you're hungry when actually you're thirsty. Number two, hit your protein goals, hit your fat targets early in the day. If you are going to be going somewhere and going over your macros, over your calories, off plan of your food anyway, don't stress about if you have macro targets that day. But getting protein and fat in early in the day is going to keep you fuller longer. And again, it's just going to help your blood sugar, help you from getting on that blood sugar roller coaster. So special occasion days are totally on plan. And then my last thought on that, I do believe that we as a society have a tendency to make everything a special occasion day. And I don't know, Did you ever watch Seinfeld?
No, okay. I didn't.
So for anybody, there's this really funny clip where Elaine, one of the main characters, like every single day at her office is a birthday or a going away party or a promotion party, and they always bring out a cake, and she ends up just losing her mind and like screaming about it. And I remember when I first watched that, I'm like, that is so funny, because I was in an office environment and it was like every other day somebody had a potluck, somebody had cake, so when we say special occasion, if you are having a special occasion treat every single day, you're probably not going to reach those goals. So when we say special occasion, needs to be a special occasion.
Maybe even for you need to define what are your special occasions, right? Like I have a regular every week, ever since my son Zai, since he was little, Thursday has been our play day. It's our date day. I take him out on a date every Thursday. In fact, as soon as we're on the podcast here, I'm going to hang out with Zai. I'm going to go sledding. We're going to build a snowman. And for us, like Thursday is a regular weekly holiday. Like Zai actually counts down to this day every week. On Tuesday, he's like, Dad, 2 more days till Thursday. And on Wednesday, like, Dad, tomorrow's play day. And for us, it's a personal holiday, right? But it's not a personal holiday that has to involve foods I'll regret later. It doesn't have to involve those things. And for some people, maybe the Super Bowl could be a special occasion that doesn't require, off-plan foods. But it's probably important to identify for yourself, and having a coach can help you to identify how much is too much, how far is too far, where is the line for me. What are my special occasions? I've had a lot of our nutrition clients that have, like, their child has a birthday, and they go all out. They make the cake for the child, but they don't themselves indulge in the cake because while it's a special occasion, it's not a special occasion in which I indulge in XYZ food, right?
Right.
And I guess like a common theme to all of this is thinking ahead, planning ahead, identifying what is the plan, what are my bright lines if you need them.
Right. And I think one of the like annoying sayings that I say a lot to people, and they might roll their eyes behind my back, which is okay. But I always like to say, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got. So if you, prior to coming to nutrition, prior to coming to CrossFit, if you were unhappy with the way you felt or you moved, if the conversation around sustainability is how can I get back to eating that way, then you're going to get back to feeling that way. So it may take some testing and learning on that tolerance you have for these foods, but you have to figure that out and creating those tolerances, creating it around your goals. Maybe you have young kids and it's more important that you enjoy some of these foods with them and you're willing to let go of some body composition goals for the next 2 or 3 years before you can really buckle down. And again, the seasonality of life, right? If you're a new mom and you're breastfeeding and you're up, all but 2 hours of the day, nourishing your body is probably what you need, not to be trying to cut body fat. Like, so these are just like, as our season of life changes, these goals can change and the approach can change too.
I think that's an awesome thought and probably a great place for us to wrap up the conversation.
Done.
Kelsey?
Right, I agree.
Well, it's been fun as always. Kelsey, thank you for letting us borrow your attention and your expertise. To all of you guys, you can check out Kelsey at ignitenourishthrive.com. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
And you can also learn more about us at crossfitedwardsville.com, where we have on Kelsey's site, she has lots of blog posts and articles and resources for more about healthy eating. And our website, we have access to our ebooks, audiobooks, podcasts, where you can do a lot more learning. Kelsey, any other closing thoughts before we sign off for the day?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me. It's always fun.
Have a good one, guys. All right, talk to you guys soon.